some cases.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by VantageScore. VantageScore's credit scoring models help expand financial inclusion by leveraging predictive analytics at VantageScore.com.
For the first time, the IRS has released an accounting of taxes owed but not paid. The agency calls this the tax gap, and for the latest year available, 2021, the amount totaled about $700 billion. That's more than 40% of what the federal government spent that year on everything except required funding, such as Medicare and Social Security. Let's bring in Marketplace's Nova Safo.
And to put it another way, David, the amount of tax not collected in 2021 would have easily paid interest payments on government debt that year, and you'd still have plenty left over. Previously, the IRS put out projections for the tax gap covering a range of years. Now it's going to do it 1 year at a time. And it's doing this while underscoring the need for more funding so that it can increase compliance. There's been a lot of debate, of course, in Congress about whether the IRS should get more funding. The Inflation Reduction Act provided $80 billion over 10 years. Republicans in the House clawed back $20 billion during debt ceiling negotiations earlier this year. The IRS is now trying to show how increased funding would help the government's fiscal troubles, which is, of course, central to the current dysfunction in the House over the federal budget.
And what's the common route used by Roger, the tax dodger?
Well, the largest chunk is $542 billion, and that comes from underreporting income. You can imagine, for example, gig workers who may not be having their incomes directly reported to the IRS by their employers, then choosing to not report that income themselves either. And it's important to note that the IRS says that it can't provide a complete accounting. It can't track some things very well, such as digital currencies, offshore accounts, corporate tax dodging. So the agency believes there's actually even more money out there that is owed and not paid.
All right, reporter Nova Safo. Our executive producer is Kelly Silvera. Our digital producer is Dylan Mietinen. Our engineers are Jess Duller and Nick Esposito. I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
At ViStar Credit Union, we believe in helping members reach their financial goals and building stronger communities. It's why we offer our members better rates and give back to the places we call home. ViStar Credit Union. Visit vistarcu.org/join. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
It's 1 minute after 9 o'clock. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Leon County's election supervisor is worried about poll workers and election staff becoming the target of threats and coercion as controversy around election security builds. As Margie Menzel reports, Mark Early told the Leon legislative delegation he believes changes may be needed.
Early says he has received troubling public records requests for the personal information of staff and volunteers. He worries that information could open the door to threats, harassment, and coercion aimed at elections workers.
Because they are invested with a lot of passwords and things like that about our voting systems and our voter registration systems. But this is something we've seen coming. We've asked for these protections in the past, but it's here right now. And I think it's a big concern of ours. So we would like very much to have explicit protections for those, especially our poll workers.
Now the state's election supervisors are asking the legislature to exempt election worker information from public records requests. They're also asking lawmakers to exempt all voter information from public records requests. Under that proposal, the information would be made available only to the voter, a canvassing board, an election official, a political party, or a qualified candidate facing opposition. I'm Margie Menzel.
Delta Airlines reported yesterday it made more than $1 billion in the third quarter thanks to planes that were packed with travelers this summer. Delta says it expects its revenue to keep rising into the busy holiday season. The Atlanta-based airline is still working on revamping changes it announced last month to its Sky Miles loyalty program. And right now, 75 degrees and cloudy in Jacksonville, mid-80s today.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Opinions expressed on the Friday Media Roundtable are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News.
My last day in the big chair. I've been keeping it warm for the new incoming host. She's excellent. You're going to be excited when we hear it all. We're going to announce it later. It has been so much fun and an honor to be here and talk to all of you, even the ones who didn't like me. I love you. The ones who didn't like me, thank you. You made me better because, everybody likes a challenge. But enough of that. Let's get to the goods because we got a lot of work to do. So it's Friday, so that means it's the Media Roundtable. Some of the items on the menu. The mother of Lakean Woods asked the city council to help her son get medical treatment. Jacksonville workers joined the UAW strike. Florida PACE is accused of financing predatory loans in Jacksonville. The city council's emergency resolution support of Israel. And then later, we have a special announcement. We're going to talk about the incoming host, who is incredible. You guys are so lucky to have her. But before we get to that, we've got a full show today, so let's get to it. Joining me, my esteemed panelists. They asked me who I wanted in, and actually these three were at the top of the list, including my man Charles Griggs, but Charles had already been here last week, so they were like, yeah, let's do someone else. So it wasn't me, Charles. It wasn't me. I wanted you here. And Claire Goforth, she is out reporting. She might listen to this on the podcast, so I'll just say I asked for Claire, too, because that's my girl. But I got my peoples with me. Nikisha Williams, author and Jax Today contributor. Nikisha, how are you?
I'm well. Good morning. Good morning, Jacksonville.
I specifically asked for you.
I know.
Because you're my peoples. My dude, who I get in trouble with on the air. Jack, orchids.
Orchids, baby.
Orchids.
You take that back to California.
Yes, I'm taking it back. My dude, Jack Webb, former city council president and regular contributor. Sir, thank you for coming in.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And the man with the plan, who I have been messing with the whole time I've been in this chair. Because, look, I've read Nate Monroe for years. I've reached out to him on all the socials or whatever. I feel like we're peoples. But this is the first time I have physically met him. And he didn't even bring his baby in, y'all. I mean, come on, Nate.
That's an unreasonable
he
request.
Is happily at daycare. His parents are happy he is at daycare.
Nikisha, you're supposed to be on my side.
No.
You're supposed.
I did this show during the pandemic with a newborn. No.
Okay, fine. Nate, thanks for coming.
Of course, man.
So listen, you can listen on the radio. You can watch video stream right now on Facebook and the WJCT YouTube page. You can call us at 549-2937. You can tweet us at FCC On Air. Email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can message us at First Coast Connect's Facebook page. Also, be sure to check out our new Instagram page, FCC On Air. We're everywhere. You can hit us up. So diving into serious topics. A video showing the violent arrest of 24-year-old Lakean Woods went viral on social media 2 weeks ago. The arrest has drawn national attention and continues to make headlines locally. Tuesday, his mother phoned into this program to speak with the mayor. She addressed city council members later that day as protesters rallied outside of City Hall. When Lakean Woods' mother called into the show, she basically said that Lakean wasn't getting the proper or adequate medical care. Do we know what's happened since that time?
He was transferred to Leon County last I saw because of the probation violation. So he's no longer at the Duval County Jail to even be serviced by the jail medical provider, which has it changed from the one that was accused of all of the issues that led to deaths of people who were incarcerated? Because that was also problematic.
Yeah, it changed from one bad provider to another bad provider.
NAFCare is the current, new provider.
Yeah, the new provider, which NAFCare, again, the thing that stands out to me about NAFCare is the reporting from the Tributary noted that a prisoner in NAVCARE's care died from bed bugs, which just seems like a horrible. It seems like a horror story.
I wonder if the movement of the young man to Leon County is consistent with existing policy. I mean, it was probation violation, or is it that the sheriff, said, "Hey, listen, I got a ticking time bomb here. We got a bad situation. And there's only so much that this community can take.
Yep.
And let's move him. Let's move him out. I don't think it's right. I don't think deprivation. And it begs the question: was he being treated properly for the issues, for the injuries sustained in the arrest, whether the arrest was justified or not, whatever? But I understand he had a bruised kidney.
Yeah.
And a brain bleed.
Brain bleed.
Yeah. I was not here on the I was out of town last Friday when this news broke, and there was of course the media roundtable, and I believe someone called in. I was told about this comment where someone asked why we were spending so much time talking about this young man and what happened, and that basically he was a scumbag and wasn't worth talking about. And when I heard that comment, I just thought to myself, like, where is our humanity? Like, regardless of what he did, as whatever law he violated, he's still a human being and should be respected and treated as a human being. And we should expect more from our from the people that are here to serve and protect us. And so, like, it's worthy talking about his life because his life matters, just like those police officers' lives matter, just like everybody in this community. We all matter, and this young man, it's worthy to have this conversation about him.
I touched on this in my column in Jax Today yesterday, that I did not watch the video that went viral. I just don't.
I can't watch
do
those.
that.
Yeah.
But I've seen the mugshot, the first mugshot, and now the second one that was released repeatedly. His eyes were swollen shut, were purple. His chin and his lip were bloody. I read the police report. I understand that he was under surveillance for being allegedly in a gang, for trafficking in cocaine and amphetamine and having large amounts and doing a drug deal, so that when the officers who were part of the gang unit stopped him for a seatbelt violation, which, as we know, these stops that they do have to be for something minor so that they can get to what they're really after. I understand all of that. What I don't understand in reading the police reports is after he was stunned twice, what it says that he kept trying to lift his body off the ground, or that he was reaching in the front of his pants, and they thought that he had a gun, that it was his side look weighted, why he had to be beaten so viciously. And then I kept looking for the charge of possession of a firearm, because if he had a prior conviction, that would be a felony, and it's not there. So I was like, so was there a gun or was there not a gun? Because if there was no gun and he was unarmed and still beaten savagely by 4 officers, 4 men beat that beat that man. And you see that they beat that man. And I don't care what he's charged with or what he did, because we have seen in this community people who have done more heinous things, who are accused of more heinous crimes, arrested without incident.
Yeah, it's
people who have fled police officers for days, arrested without incident. And yet you beat that man until his ribs and kidneys were bruised. He had a brain bleed, a concussion, and put him in prison and incarcerated him, and he could barely open his eyes. And now that they are open, they're not just bloodshot, they're bloody red. That's problematic, and that's part of the problem when we talk about policing and police brutality. It's not that we don't want people to have to account for the crimes that they are arrested for and that they are suspected of committing and stand trial. That's not the issue. The issue is the difference in treatment of people who are arrested, who are of color, who are treated without dignity and like they are savages. That is a problem of policing, and that is the reckoning that began in 2020 with George Floyd that people have seemed to have forgotten about.
So 2 points that I want to make. And the first is that, the sheriff very quickly came out and defended this arrest and, made it sound like this was basically by the book. Yeah, it looks ugly, but this is how these things go. Resisting arrest is a fairly common charge.
Because there's also resisting without violence.
Right.
Which is pretty common as well.
Right. So resisting is a pretty common charge. If this was by the book, why aren't they booking people in the jail who look like this all the time? Right? Like, why was this mugshot so shocking if this arrest really was just totally unremarkable? I think that's just on its face a pretty suspect thing to say. The other point, and Al, this is just something you said to open this all up. Even if you can't bring yourself to get to the humanity issue, and you just think that this guy was probably a bad dude doing bad stuff, you still should not want police to violate people, because that endangers the state's case against these defendants. If this guy's a bad guy, the state's case against him is weaker now because of the way he was treated.
We're going to go to the phones. We've got Mark on the west side. Mark, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. You guys are like Jesus with your compassion. I'm just kind of wondering, also, let's not forget that there's probably 5 or 10 white guys that get the same treatment maybe not every day, but often enough that they are in prison and look just like this guy. And just because the news media doesn't cover it. I used to work at the jail. I used to see this all the time. I guarantee you there's a bunch of white guys that look just like this guy that got treated just like him, but we don't hear about it.
Hey, Mark, hold on. Let me take one point. Let me take your 1 point, and I'll let you continue, right? If there are a bunch of white guys that look like this in the jail, that's wrong too. And if it was reported, and if I saw it, I would say the exact same thing. Number 2, you said my compassion is like Jesus. Thank you.
Amen.
I was going to use that.
I'm going to I cannot walk on water or change water to wine. Although if I could change water to wine, I would invite you over, Mark. But I would just say that I don't think it's a bad thing to have compassion. I have compassion for this man. I have compassion for the police officers. I have compassion for you, Mark. So thank you for the compliment. Continue, please, though.
I wonder how far that passion would go if we found out, God forbid, Jesus forbid, that this guy sold your child some of his poison and it killed them. I wonder where you'd be standing then.
You know where I'd be standing? Number one, I am not a person who believes that people shouldn't go to jail. If he is selling drugs in the community, yeah, absolutely, he should go through the due process of law. I would be heartbroken that my child was gone, but also, I'm not the type that would be in the streets calling for this man's death.
Yeah, Al, thank you. The caller's comment is disturbing. That he worked in the jail and he sees this happening to a bunch of white people all the time. So great, thank you very much. It's not a racial issue. Thank you very much. It's completely a systemic issue that occurs within the Duval County Jail. Is that what you're telling me? And that's supposed to make it. Talk about false equivalence. I mean, this is insane. And I've recently attempted to obtain some video on an issue over at the jail involving a white guy. And I can't get it. They beat the holy hell out of this kid. Broke his wrists, and can't get the video for a variety of security-related issues. We're still working on it. But, but like you say, Al, it's Friday. I don't get comparisons to Jesus every day, so I'll take it, man.
Yeah, exactly. Mark, thanks so much for your call. We really appreciate it. And we're going to go to the phones again. We got Brad in the Beaches. Brad, how you doing, man?
Good, Al. I wanted to bring up the fact that when tasers were introduced to the JSO, they did a little scenario where they tased Sheriff John Rutherford. On each side of Sheriff Rutherford, there were 2 officers that when he was tased, they helped him to the ground. When Mr. Woods was tased, he was running away. When the bolt went through his body, he went stiff and fell face first. The way they presented tasers and the way they used tasers are far different. They were supposed to be in place of deadly force. I don't believe they would have shot him in the back running away. Why did they just taser him, not giving any thought to, he's going to hit his face or his head on the concrete. This could really hurt him. Am I risking his life by trying to use this instrument to get him? Because I feel like tasers, since they've come out, have been the issue. I mean, they'll tase somebody that won't get out of a car. I mean, they wouldn't have shot him if they wouldn't get out of a car. So I really think this comes down to taser usage and the fact that people are injured, sometimes fatally, when they're just running away. And the sentence of death isn't associated with running from the police.
Hey, Brad, thank you so much for your call. We're going to go to the phones again. We've got Todd on the south side. Todd, how are you?
I'm fine today. Sorry you're leaving.
Thank you, man. I'll
wanna
always be here in spirit, though.
Yeah. I want to make a comment about T.K. Waters. This is a man who went to Liberty University. This is a man who recently came back from Israel and said that he kind of wished he could get away with the kind of brutality that the Israeli army and police are carrying out against the Palestinians. We have to understand that the black community has been held hostage for a long time, and that one of the ways they contain us is to brutalize us. And we've seen it over and over and over again in almost every state of this union. It is an apparatus that is designed to occupy the community. And I won't go any further, but I think everybody gets the point.
Todd, thank you so much for calling in. We're going to go to Stanley on the north side. Stanley, it's my last day. You know I had to take your call. How you doing?
Man, I have much love for you.
Thank you,
and
sir.
what y'all do over there, but especially you, and love to your family, too.
Thank you, brother. I
My
appreciate
main
it.
concern here, two wrongs don't make a right. My mother used to say, which go way back in the Gully Geechee days, two wrongs don't make a right. The police job, and we need to get to the point here. The point is that the ethics. We are not addressing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. And it has been good to talk to you these months when you call in. You are listening to First Coast Connect. You can join the conversation at 549-2937. You can tweet us at FCC On Air, First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. You can find us on Facebook, where we're streaming now, and on YouTube, all the places you know where to find us. We're going to go to the phones again. We've got Stephanie in San Marco. Steph, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, thanks.
What you got for me?
I just wanted to say that I've worked in law enforcement in multiple different places, and I've worked at this Duval County Jail. And it's, a lot of times the violence and the tasers and the things that they use, they feel are necessary because they feel threatened. And we do need more training on how to allow our officers to not react quite to the inmates that taunt them and that will fight. And we need to make sure that, like anybody that was running away, and if I shot somebody that was running out of my house from beating me up or whatever, they're running away, I would be charged. I would be in trouble. It just doesn't make sense to me that if you're running away, that you would get tased in the back.
Stephanie, thank you so much for calling in. And with that, we're going to move on to another subject. Employees at Mack Truck Distribution Center in Northwest Jacksonville joined the UAW strike on Wednesday after rejecting a 5-year contract agreement. Members of the North Florida Labor Council are expected to join the UAW Local 2420 at the picket line today to show support for solidarity. And before we dive into this, I think I should just say to all the listeners that I am a member of the WGA. I was on strike for almost 5 months. So definitely, I just want you to know where my biases lie in this. I am a union man. Jack.
Full disclosure on my part as well. I spent 8 years in-house counsel with a third-party logistics provider. I was in charge of all of their labor relations for all of North America. So I've negotiated with the UAW, Teamsters, Steelworkers, everybody. I find this Max strike really, really interesting because it's really not tied to the Big Three strike. Again, this was an independent negotiation the UAW is conducting with MAC. They voted down a contract. I think it was 79% of the members of the UAW voted it down at 5 different locations around the country. The Big Three strike is fascinating in its own right, and the fact that the UAW is not targeting one one, the low-hanging fruit, let's go after Ford, and then we'll get them to settle, and then we'll pat and bargain with the other two. That's not what's going on here. Rather, they're engaging in ULP strikes, unfair labor practice strikes. That is, you're not bargaining in good faith. We're going to pull our guys out and, our people out, and we're going to shut you down here. We're going to shut you down here. And it's a drastic change. It's a radical change in strategy by the UAW. So to the extent that the narrative or the question is this a pivotal moment for Jacksonville labor movement? I think it's a pivotal moment for labor in the United States, and I think it's trickling down here to Jacksonville.
I would add that you said you're a member of the WGA. I'm probably a future member of the Authors Guild. SAG is still on strike with the actors, but beyond these marquee names, we also had Kaiser Permanente on strike with the nurses.
Yep.
We've had teachers go on strike, and we've been seeing the number of strikes in different industries increase over the last few years. And that is because as the economy grows and the stock market does well and corporate profits increase and CEO incomes and salaries increase, like homeboy down at Disney making billions of dollars. You're making $70,000 a day. Some people don't make that a year. We are seeing gross inequality for not just the 99% at the bottom, taken from Occupy Wall Street, but just all across industries. People aren't making a living wage. They're not making enough to survive on. So the only power that they do have in industries where unions are still available and the option to strike is still one that can be taken is to do so knowing that it may cost them in the short term for longer term gains that will still have to be renegotiated in 3 to 5 years to keep up with the pace of inflation, the growth of the economy, and whatever other technology is coming in and crushing and killing industry in the name of efficiency. This is something that we're going to have to reckon with nationwide that is now hitting the city of Jacksonville. So how they maneuvered the strike for Mack trucks, that's not the issue. The issue is the wage gap and the inequality of people and the large class differences between the upper echelon 1%, the people in the 9 to 10%, and everybody else in the bottom half that's not making a living wage, where the middle class no longer exists. You are working class, working poor, or you are wealthy. And those are really some of the key issues that people are grappling with and that are causing some of the political divisions that we're seeing as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm also a member of the News Guild, so people can.
I'm the only management guy here.
Yeah,
oh, it's good. We got a management.
We got a management guy.
I got 3 out of 4. I mean, I agree with the sentiment that what we're seeing here is a kind of national trend that we're seeing manifest on a local level. I mean, from a news perspective, I'm used to really just writing about public sector unions. In Florida, because of the way the laws really don't incentivize private sector unionization. I mean, we're used to reading about the firefighters union, the police union, the teachers union. We don't see a lot of private sector union news very often. And so that was kind of the thing that struck me about this, is that we are, it feels like in some ways we're kind of catching up to something that's been happening on a national level for the past several years. But yeah, I mean, the pendulum is swinging back. I mean, I feel like we spent several decades of a kind of almost post-union movement, and now we're workers for all the reasons that we've just been discussing are sort of open to this idea again, and I think unions are kind of on the rise.
Yeah, I am not an economist. I talk pretty on the radio. That's what I do. But I have been driving around Jacksonville, specifically in my neighborhood, Riverside, and I have been seeing so many for rent signs just in my area. And I know that Jacksonville has a housing crisis. Mm-hmm. And so what connects the dots that are connecting in my brain is that, like, Jacksonville really has a wage crisis. Like, there are available apartments and places, but people just can't afford it. And so if you can't afford it, you could have all this stock of places that you can live, but if you can't afford it, it's a housing crisis. And I think that points at, like, what we're seeing across the country with labor movements, with people feeling like, people being told by economists that the economy is great and good, but not actually seeing it in their bank account. but but having to do like 3 or 4 different jobs just to keep up. And if you're doing 3 or 4 different jobs just to keep up, and you're watching these economists tell you that like, hey, we're doing good, and you're seeing the CEOs make all this money off of the labor that you're giving, then it feels like you have to do something to shake it up. On that note, we're going to go to the phones, and we've got Javon on the south side. Javon, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm a member of the Washington-Baltimore News Guild myself, but I work for a public sector union, and in Florida, we have a much tougher situation. But what's happening with labor, the anti-labor movement is very strong here, where our unions now have to have 60% membership or face decertification, and that takes power away from the people we depend on every single day. You know, these are people that keep our water clean. These are our people who get our kids to and from school safely, not just teachers, but also those who are in support services for schools, our sanitation workers, are in so many different parts of the public sector. And I talk to people who tell me they wake up in the morning crying because they don't know how they're going to make ends meet, or they're working second jobs or trying to find side hustles so they can put enough food on the table. And these are people who don't want to walk away from their jobs because they recognize that what they do is incredibly important. It's a service to the community. So I just want to call on the community, people who care about things like clean water and their kids getting to school safely, to also show support for your friends and neighbors who work in these sectors and are union members.
Yeah.
So we need the public to have our back as we push back against politicians who want to pay people less to do more work and act as if our cities and communities run themselves.
Javon, thanks so much for the call. We're going to take another call. We got JD in Sea Island. JD, how you doing?
Good. I want to see a new law, and this new law is for big corporations that pay stock dividends. I think it's time because the worker's the one that makes that dividend. It isn't the boardroom. It isn't the stockholder. It is the worker. And if you have a big corporation and you're paying stock dividends, then those employees should be sharing in that, and they should be given stock along with that pay. That's giving everybody a raise without giving anybody a raise. Because the longer and harder they work to make that stock dividend, it's time they started sharing in it. And I would like to see a law brought to the Senate and to the House making this so. This is the way they can give a whole lot of people a raise, like I said, without giving anybody a raise. Because those stock certificates don't cost them nothing to print. It's printed money. And it's time they started sharing it with the real people that actually make that dividend. Those are the workers. I'll take it off the air.
JD, thank you.
He's not wrong.
I'd never thought about it before, but I think it's a great idea.
He's not wrong. And what's funny about that is, I don't know if you all remember a few years ago when Amazon first came to Jacksonville, one of the incentives that they were giving for the employees was stock options. And then when the whole, we need $15 minimum wage came, Amazon increased their starting wage to $15 an hour, but then took away the stock options for the employees, which was not a good deal.
You know, it's interesting. You got a guy calling from Sea Island, Georgia. Okay, Sea Island's not a poor place. All right, you got a lot of Republicans running around Sea Island, and this guy's calling and he's advocating something like that. And then you got hourly workers for the UAW here in Jacksonville who are actually getting out of the picket line. Most people, these shops, these union shops here in the state of Florida, they don't even join the union because they don't care. Maybe what we're seeing here is just a groundswell in changing attitudes because, to your point, people can't afford to live. You can't afford to live. You got to do something. Yep. You got to do something.
And moving on, PACE, the funding agency, has come under fire, and some local officials call it predatory throughout Duval County. The Jacksonville City Council passed a bill allowing for legal action against Florida PACE funding organization to halt the funding of home improvements on residential properties without the city's consent. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know much about PACE at all. So can you guys kind of fill me in?
I mean, on a high level, PACE offers a way for people to finance home improvements if you don't have cash on hand and you don't have like much home equity. You can get money, and that you're assessed on your property tax bill. And so the difficulty comes in if you can't pay, you're you're essentially not paying your taxes, and so it becomes a really serious issue, and people can end up losing their homes if they're not making timely payments, and that's really why PACE has become an object of controversy, and in the city, on a city level, like a pretty unanimous condemnation of something. So we have not seen a lot of that in the Deegate administration on a kind of hot button issue. So I think it's notable you've got Republicans and Democrats on the city council and in the mayor's office pretty roundly skeptical.
What I find interesting about this is obvious. This seems to be a situation where our esteemed state legislature created this mess, right? This, what a property assessed clean energy loan program. It seems to me like the legislation wasn't well drafted, wasn't done well, and it's created all sorts of issues. And imagine that you got these guys come in, got lobbyists trying to get this program through. They do, and it creates issues on the local level. A lot of holes in it. So the cool thing is that we're fixing it, trying to fix it on a local level, which is something we haven't seen in a long time, and it's bipartisan.
Yeah.
So it's great. I applaud Council President Salem on this.
Yeah. So Nate, just to be clear, like PACE is a place, like if I had some renovations that I had to do to my house, like things are, like I need a new roof. I don't actually need a new roof. I'm saying if I needed a new roof, that you would go to PACE, they would give you the funding to do it, but then it would be a part of your taxes.
Yeah, you would be assessed on your property tax bill.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then you'd pay. You'd
And
have
so
to,
your tax bill is higher, and because you're paying down the loan as well as your property taxes. And if you don't make the monthly payments, then you can be in danger of losing your home. And so it's like a state created, almost like a subprime mortgage crisis, where you're getting into the point where you may have taken out this loan on your home, but with the interest of the loan, the increase of the property taxes every year, your loan amount is now worth more than your home is, even with the improvements that you did to it, like a new roof or a hot water heater or whatever the case may be. And so now people are either defaulting on their taxes, foreclosing on their homes, and we're only adding to the affordable housing crisis because there are now more people that don't have a place to stay. They have a foreclosure on their credit report. And it's just a snowballing cycle. So that's what's happening.
Well, and PACE is like a quasi-government agency, too. And so it's not like this isn't going to come at you like it's some skeezy, weird fraudster kind of private company. I mean, they've got the patina of having like official sort of, this is an official government agency that's going to make a loan to me. And I think it's people just get kind of trapped in this and don't realize what's going to happen to their property tax bill and the value of their home.
But I think that's what's happening with a lot of things in housing and has been so since before 2008 when the subprime mortgages were first bundled and sold. Like people thought these were good things. We can get all of this house and we can have these low mortgage rates and these low interest rates and not reading the fine print or getting to like, oh, in 3 to 5 years, you're going to have this balloon payment and then this is what your mortgage is going to be. And the same thing with PACE. If you're having this facade of being an official government agent, maybe not necessarily a facade, but you're being presented this opportunity from an official government agency that says, hey, we can fix your home and this is all it's going to cost. And then to pay down the loan, oh, we're just going to add a nominal whatever to your tax bill. That sounds good when you got a leaking roof and water coming into the house.
Right.
I know because I have a leaking roof and water coming into my house and I'm having to do that and pay that out of pocket. But if you take a loan and now it's tacked into your tax bill, your taxes are going up, and the loan and the taxes are worth more than the house, you don't have any equity. So why pay it? And I think a lot of people are in that position and then realizing, okay, so you abandon the property, you go through foreclosure, or you try to sell it, you put it up for rent, and now you're at a point where, well, my mortgage was $1,200, but now my rent's going to be $1,800. Like
Yep.
it's a no-win situation.
do we know how many people in Jacksonville have these PACE loans? Do we have any idea? I guess the question is it widespread?
It's not supposed to be, and I think what prompted the city council action is that the city had not really authorized PACE to do residential loans. Now, I think they were authorized to do commercial loans, And I think there was some revelation that they were here doing some stuff. I don't have the numbers, but it's not supposed to be very big.
It's not. My understanding is that it was a handful of people, and the council president is kind of putting together a list of people who were affected by this. But to your point, Nate, yeah, there was an understanding that they would come in and do commercial projects here, but not residential. I think there was a court ruling out of one of the DCAs that said no, that the statute applies statewide, so you can't ban it. You can't prohibit these guys from doing both residential and commercial statewide. So my understanding is general counsel has been authorized to bring legal action to challenge that decision.
And the tax collector has not been adding on the bills.
That's correct.
Right.
And I think that's been the saving grace for a lot of people in Jacksonville.
Kudos to him. I'm impressed.
Yeah. My producer, Stacey Bennett, just texted me and said that at least 160 people have gotten into these loans. Listen, you can join the conversation. Call us at 549-2937. You can tweet us at FCC On Air. First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. You can find us on Facebook. I think we're streaming live there. Instagram and YouTube, all the places. You know where to find us. So rallies in support of Israel and Palestine have taken place in Jacksonville since Saturday's attacks in Israel. On Tuesday, the city council approved a resolution 16-1 condemning Hamas and declaring support for Israel. This is like something that's happening all over the country with city councils, with governors, just stating, and the federal government. I saw a press conference today where the federal government was basically, cementing their support for Israel. It seems like this conflict, to me, as a person who grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, I won't tell you my age. It seems like this conflict is kind of never ending. That this is just another chapter in a long, sad history of the Middle East. And also, I think, again, I am not a historian, nor am I a political pundit. I speak pretty on the radio. But it feels like the world is kind of losing its grip and we are sliding towards, worldwide conflict.
Well, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, right?
Yeah, and it feels like we are in that loop, right? It feels like we are about to repeat some steps that really brought a lot of heartache and pain across the world.
It's heartbreaking because it's generational.
Yep.
Both the action and the reaction will have generational impact, not only on the region, but on the world. And that's what's very, very sad about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to preface my comments by saying I am not a geopolitical expert, but I do read, and I read a lot. And to that end, Hamas is a terrorist organization, and the attacks on Israel were raw. Israel has seemingly said that it has no choice but to defend its people. But what we are witnessing, and what we have continued to witness for all of my lifetime and all of yours, and probably all of time since the days of Jesus, is both religious and imperial. Israel was a created state, carved out of an area in the Middle East after the horrors of the Holocaust. No one is going to deny that. What we also can't deny is how Israel's behavior in their state and encroaching on the people of Palestine, who were already there with their settler colonialism and forcing people out of their homes and dispossessions, has created great anger among the Palestinian people and on the Gaza Strip. Hamas is a terrorist organization. I am not condoning anything that they have done, especially not the using of hostages, including some Americans, as human shields. But to go back to our earlier conversation about compassion and empathy, you have to understand that people will only live under oppression for so long. So while the people of Palestine are suffering and the people of Israel are suffering in a war that is going to be long and bloody and may include outside influences like Hezbollah in Lebanon to Israel's north, and all the conspiracies about where Iran is going to lie and what that's going to do for the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the alliances that were just beginning to be formed there to bring peace to an area that has been at war for centuries. It's going to have to play out, and there is no right way to land on this issue. Like, I bristle at the blind support for Israel because Israel is not 100% in the right, just period. But I also bristle at how quickly people are ignoring the oppression of the Palestinians because you want to seem like you are solely and solidly behind Israel. And it's not anti-Semitic to recognize that people are hurting in Palestine and condemn what has happened. This is not going to be a pretty war, and there's no right way to talk about the conflict without acknowledging all of the factors.
Yep.
You know, you make some really, really good points. And I had made a note here, just concerns regarding or criticisms regarding the policies of the state of Israel does not necessarily conflate to being anti-Semitic. And that's what needs to be understood. I find it really, really interesting that President Salem was the lone no vote on the city council resolution. Now, does that mean that he is anti-Semitic? No. Does it mean that he's pro-Hamas? No. What it just indicates to me is that he has an understanding of the complexity of the problem. And, you know, being a Palestinian doesn't mean you're Islamic or you're Christian. It means you're a Palestinian. So I'm not speaking for President Salem, but I think it just his no vote just is reflective of those comments that you're making.
I think it does. It does us no favors to try and this is what, in my opinion, what Americans and the American media can do at times is just simplify things and say, like, there's a good guy, there's a bad guy, and this is how you should feel about that. And this is one of those extremely, extremely complex situations that you really have to, like, take time out to really talk about, like, how we got into this situation, who benefits from this situation.
Good point.
I mean, if you look at, like, who benefits from this situation, I mean, to me, like, the clear beneficiary of what's happening is Russia, because if all the conflict, if all our eyes are locked in on Israel and the horrors that we see there, like the horrors that Hamas committed, like that was, I mean, going to a concert or a rave, I can't even imagine the sorrow and the horror that people feel when, you know, the kids are at a rave and then suddenly terrorists come in and take hostages and kill people. And I mean, it's just earth-shattering. On the flip side, with the lives that the Palestinians have to live every day, and the struggles that they have to take, is horrific as well. And so, you know, all of that is absolutely horrible. But if you're Russia and you're trying to take over Ukraine, and suddenly the world's eyes are no longer looking at you, and suddenly, and you know the United States, you know that the United States is going to say, we support Israel, we are strong with Israel, and the focus in Congress, which I would say, like, we're watching what's happening in Congress. It's
because Congress is not working right now.
I would not say that it's the
functional,
the most functional. So you know, it's the place that benefits the most from this is not Israel, is not Hamas, is not the Palestinian people or the Israeli people. It is, in my opinion, it's Russia.
But it's not just Russia.
What about China?
Yes,
that was my next comment.
What about China?
It's not just Russia, and so I was reading a story in the New York Times.
Taiwan's just sitting there.
In the New York Times earlier this week that says we are now living a world of multipolarity, where because the United States had pulled back its role as the world's cop because we had our own issues in Iraq and Afghanistan in the early 2000s, now all of these countries that have a bone to pick are feeling real froggy.
Right.
And so Russia invaded Ukraine and is going on with its life. China is looking at Taiwan like they're on notice. Russia and North Korea have formed an alliance. Hamas attacked Israel. We are looking, and even what's going on with Haiti, and now Kenya is sending police to Haiti to try to police them when Kenya has its own human rights abuses with its own police. But that's another issue. But we're looking at a world where countries that are ready to attack are doing so because the United States is not going to be the one to offer the repercussions.
Yep.
And for the final time, for me at least. Oh, I love it when a plan comes together. Brady Corum, just hit it. And see, like, I got your name right. On the last day, I got your name right, brother. All right, so we're going to ask every participant here what they have on their radar. And I will start with my friend, Jack Webb. Tell me about orchids.
No more orchids, brother. I'm out of botany. I want to give a shout out to my daughter Maura and her fiance Sal. They will, as of 5:30 this afternoon, they will be Mr. and Mrs. Salvatore Catalano, getting married at the cathedral down in St. Augustine. So I'm heading down there as soon as we wrap up, my brother.
All right, man. Congratulations,
Thank you.
man. Congratulations. Nate, what you got for me?
We interviewed the mayor this week on her first 100 days, and when I'm done here, I've got to go back and try to meet a deadline to write that up. So
Nice.
That's my Friday.
All right. And Nikisha, what you got for me?
So this weekend is the TEDx Jacksonville conference here at the WJCT studios. It's tomorrow from like 10 to 5, I think. Don't quote me on that because I'll be here all day. I am a TEDx coach. I've been working with Dr. Diana Green. You want to come to the conference to hear what everyone has to say, but if you're really nosy and want to know what Dr. Green has to say, come on down. She's the last speaker, so you'll be in for a full treat tomorrow at WJCT Studios.
All right. My beautiful panel, thank you all for coming in. And thank you all.
Korean Pen, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congaree&pen.com.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Personal Injury and Wrongful Death Law Firm. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, answering who, what, when, where, why, and how is critical to proving the truth. More at terrellhogan.com.
President Biden speaks out.
This is an act of sheer evil.
He says the attack by Hamas on Israel was the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust.
This is terrorism.
We have the latest on the Friday News Roundup and more on Republican efforts to elect a new speaker. Catch up on all the biggest stories from the week next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Jam. It's my jam. And I feel like, at WJCT, what my tenure was all about with First Coast Connect is trying to make it a vibrant thing. We did that. So today is my last day. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, I am doing the official handoff. It really makes me happy to say that this woman is my friend. And also, I think I've told you this before. She's kind of my hero. Like, she used to run Folio back in the day. And man, Folio back in your time was killing it on the investigative stories. So my friend, my buddy, and like just a goddess of news in Jacksonville, Ann Schindler is the new host of First Coast Connect. And she is right here with me now. Ann, thank you and welcome.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I'm just been warming up your chair. So tell me, now that you are the new host of the program, what do you think you want to do? Where do you want to take it?
I love what you've been doing. First of all, I think you've just brought a whole new energy to the show. I mean, Melissa laid the foundation. She's obviously, also just an inspiration.
Yeah. Melissa's the GOAT.
But I love the everyday people stuff that you've done. I love the jams that you bring in. I love your vibe. I think we just are going to continue to have a show that's relevant and interesting, and we want the conversations to be dynamic and propulsive and fun, and hopefully people leave listening feeling a little smarter.
Yeah, I think when I took this job, when I took this job, I always knew it was going to be interim. I loved it so much. There was a moment where I was like, can I stay? But I have contracts in LA that I have to get back to. But yeah, I love this job. And I think when I took it, like I felt like the idea of being the host of this program was really about being an honest cheerleader for Jacksonville. Like I think whoever's in this seat, and this is why like I'm such a supporter of you getting the job. You just have to love Jacksonville. You have to love Jacksonville with all the warts and all the things that make you go, oh, Jacksonville. But because you love it, you earn that, oh, Jacksonville. You know, there's a clip in a movie called The Last Man in San Francisco. And in it, like, he's on a bus and there's two women talking about how much they hate San Francisco. And he turns to them and he says, do you love it? And they're like, no. And he's like, well, if you don't love it, you don't get to say that. And I think that like that's the most truest thing. Like I love Jacksonville and I will complain and, you know,
It's kind of like how you can't talk smack about somebody else's dad, but they'll
Exactly.
like complain about him till the end of the day.
Exactly. So to me, it's like love this place, but also call it out on its stuff because it's got a lot of stuff.
It's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. The callers, I will tell you, are great. I've had such a great time talking to the people of Jacksonville, even the ones that challenge. Like today, I was called Jesus.
Well, I
kinda.
thought that was a compliment.
I don't think he meant it as
I mean-
a compliment, but like I thought it was a compliment. I was like, thank you. My mother would really appreciate that compliment.
You're a compassionate man, and I think everybody recognizes that.
Well, thank you very much. And when I think about you, I think really about like hard hitting journalism. So tell me, like, are you planning to do that here at First Coast Connect? Like, how are you going to do that? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm hoping to continue doing reporting. I mean, I love reporting. I love writing. I love going down rabbit holes and digging into stuff and knowing more and finding out the gray areas. You know, I think that one of complaint I have about any kind of news, if I have one, is just sometimes it's too simple.
Yep.
You know, most issues are really much more complicated, and it's hard to tell them in a brief time, but that's really where the interesting stuff is. That's where the backstory is. That's where the context is. And I hope to explore context, you know, more thoroughly as I can in any story, trying to bring in the history, how we got here, you know, what the lead up was. It's often, you know, tells you a lot about why we get to the place that we are and sheds a lot more light on it.
Yes, absolutely. Before we go, I have to really thank some people because they made my time here just amazing. First and foremost, I'd like to thank David McGowan, CEO of WJCT, Jerry Cirillo, Cersei Lenoble. I saw Cersei at my good friend David Gerard's birthday party, and I just happened to mention to Cersei I was in town for the summer, and she was like, really? And the next thing I know, Jerry was sending me an email going, Al, what are you doing this summer? And, you know, the fact that they thought about me and gave me this opportunity because I'd never done live radio before. And people, let me tell you, live radio is a thing. It ain't easy. So really big thank you to them. Also, I got to thank my dude, WJCT's Clark Kent, Dan Scantlin. Dan, you are amazing. He sat in here and he hosted a lot, and he's just been a good friend, and he's a fellow Trekkie. So much love to Dan. And then I really, really, really cannot stress enough how amazing the team is at WJCT. Like the people that I work with every day, from coming in the morning to with Michelle Coram, who gave me the sweetest goodbye gift. Thank you, Michelle. To Stacy the Brain Bennett. She has been amazing. I feel like both of us have been learning this job together, and you know, she's now like my sibling. She's been great. David Luckin. So I cannot take credit for the music. Like David Luckin is the man with the plan. He has been hooking the music up and making it sound great. And I think he took kind of like my vibe and decided like I'm going to go deep into it. Then I have to thank, you know, my man, Brady Coram. I screw up his name every day and he never gets mad. He looks at me and laughs about it. But Brady has been amazing. And of course, I cannot forget Heather Schatz. She was our producer who left. She kind of took my hand and led me into all of this stuff. So it has been amazing working with all these people. There's a lot of people at WJCT that I didn't name, but the music is coming on. So I'm just going to say, WJCT, you are my home. I love you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And to Duval, listen, I live in Jacksonville. I ain't going nowhere. I'm just off the airs. So if you see me in a bar, buy me a drink. I like bourbon. That's my thing. So hit me up. All right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to say thank you for this time. Thank you for being with me. And please keep your heart open for Duval and each other. And I'll see you around town.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter service,